Good morning. Happy, healthy New Year. All right? I'm getting old. Yeah. The world fall apart. It's
So many good news.
yeah, well, hope.
Kill that fucker.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Rabbi Mark Gelman.
Yeah, but you smiled.
Yeah.
I think it was good they got it.
We'll see what happens.
So I'm giving a lecture on February 7th at Bethel in West.
Eric's.
You're from the old days like me. All my teachers loved me.
I just think it was so interesting. Good morning, sir. It's good to see you. Good morning. It's Shabbos. Oh, wow. I didn't think I needed so many. All right, good morning. It's great to see you all. Shana Tova. Happy New Year. Everybody woke up this morning and said, I'm making a New Year's resolution. I'm going to lose 20 pounds and learn Torah with Rabbi Feinstein. Let's see if one out of two, right? They'll all come back skinny and Torah-filled. Well, good morning. Happy 2020. I'm proud to say that my computer is still working and the airplanes are still up. So it's wonderful to see you all. Happy, healthy New Year. A mazel tov to Jack and Gabi Donitz on the marriage. Where is he? He was there, married. There he is. There he is. A wonderful mazel tov to Jack and his family on the beautiful marriage of his daughter, Alexis, to Brian Horvath of, where are they from? Chicago. From Chicago, right. Beautiful, lovely young man. As long as he's upright. He's a young man. Right? But it was a beautiful, beautiful wedding on New Year's Eve. And lots of mazel tovs to everyone else who has simchas to celebrate. Yeah, we were on the 30th floor of this office building watching fireworks all over the city. You know, it was quite beautiful, really quite beautiful. LA is a beautiful city at night. You know, when you're looking at the lights from above, it was quite beautiful. Yeah, you don't see any of that schmutz. I mean, you know, the homeless, and you don't see the dirt, and you don't see the transportation. Yeah, it was quite beautiful. Beautiful. Yes, please.
My granddaughter also got married New Year's Eve.
Mazel tov!
And he came from Cleveland.
He came all the way from Cleveland to celebrate. Mazel tov. That's wonderful. Really glad to share this with you. That's great. Mazel tov.
He's a shul-goer.
I know. We taught him how to be a shul-goer here. So oh, I'm really happy for you. That's great. Well, anyway, good morning and happy New Year to everyone. And I hope it's a great year. Following our learning this morning, there's a lovely young kid having a bat mitzvah in the sanctuary. You're all invited to that. Following that is lunch. I don't know what it is today. Following that is going to be a Parsha study this morning in the youth lounge. And then this coming week we start. The schools start on Monday here, and we're going to be. On Wednesday night, we've preempted the College of Jewish Studies or created a special session because there's so much concern about rising anti-Semitism. We're going to have a conversation about that. And our guests that evening are going to be Steve Windmuller from HUC, who's a wonderful thinker and analyst of the Jewish community and its issues. And Richard Hirschhout from the new director of the American Jewish Committee here in Los Angeles. He's spent 20 years in Chicago as the head of the ADL there, and now he's the American Jewish Committee here, and they'll be talking to us about the causes and our responses to anti-Semitism in the community. That's Wednesday night, 7 o'clock. It's free. Everyone is invited to come and to join us. And then on Friday night at 6:30 is going to be, and then on Friday night at 6:30 is going to be Rimonim, the beautiful musical service that we do. So everyone's invited to share these wonderful times in the shul, and so you can enjoy the shul. On the 12th, we're having a concert a youth concert, a youth choral made up of Israeli and Palestinian kids who are touring the country, and they're going to be here on the 12th. And all of that's in the Shabbaton, so grab one of the Shabbatons and enjoy that. We have Chumashim. Everyone got Chumash today? And I passed out some sheets. I don't know how many to print today because I didn't know how many people would come today. We'll share them, though. We'll see. This morning, we reached the denouement. This morning, we reached the climactic moment in the narrative arc of the book of Genesis. As we mentioned some weeks ago, Rabbi Gelman was reminding me how much he appreciates Freud.
One word.
I know.
You're dead.
Yeah, no.
You're dead.
We're doing Erickson. Erickson.
No Freud.
No Freud. No Freud. That's called Schadenfreude. That's what it is. Sorry. Freud had this idea that the dynamic of human development is the Oedipal complex. He said little boys fall in love with mom, and then they realize that they have to challenge dad for mom. And when they realize that they can't overcome dad's enormous power, they identify with dad and grow up as at least sexually healthy men.
And the evidence that that's true?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yes, I know.
Nothing.
Yes. There are some critics to this theory. There are some people who demur from this theory. Yeah, well, now, hang on.
He did cocaine. I rest my case.
Oh, well, is that good or bad? That's the question. Yes, right. Right. Yeah. So the Bible offers a different theory. The Bible offers the theory that the primary relationship that drives human development, or male development actually, because it's a patriarchal book, and human history beyond that isn't the Oedipal complex, isn't your relationship to your parent, it's sibling relationships. It's a relationship to the brother. And what you have in Genesis is a series of brother stories, okay? You have Cain and Abel, the first two brothers born in the world, and then the sons of Noah, and then Abraham, his brother's dead, but his brother's surrogate is Lot, his brother's son, Isaac and Ishmael, Jacob and Esau, Joseph and his brothers, and then we're going to jump to the next book, and we're going to get a very interesting sort of triangle brother. You're going to have Moses and Aaron, but really Moses and Pharaoh, who were raised as brothers. And what the Bible is going to suggest is that in each generation, each iteration, you have a conflict between brothers because there seems to be a game going on of which brother inherits the father's blessing. Two brothers, one blessing. The plaintive cry of Esau at the end of the story of the birthright, when he says to his father, "Have you no blessing for me, father? Have you no blessing for me? Is there no room for me, for the other brother in the story? Is there no room for me in the family? Is there no room for me in the world?" Captures not only the dynamic of human development, but it also captures a sense of what human history is really about. That all of us are struggling for that blessing, to be the top, to be the one who inherits the family's attention, the family's wealth, the family's position, but the family's blessing. All of us are struggling for that, and for some reason, there doesn't seem to be enough to go around. And that's the conflict that's built in. You begin with Cain and Abel, and I won't make you turn all the pages, but you remember this story. See, the first two brothers born in the world, you have a story of a conflict, which is such an interesting narrative. If you think about a narrator, a storyteller, with a range, a repertoire of stories in front of him or in front of her, and that's the story you tell. That the first two brothers born in the world, they bring an offering to God. So in this case, it's the divine father. It's not the earthly father. And the Torah says one was accepted and one was rejected. And you say, why? Or how would you know? How does that work? But it doesn't matter. You see, it doesn't matter whether it really happened. That's what's perceived. That's what's perceived, right? Mom loved you more. The Smothers Brothers' old routine. The idea that one is accepted and one is rejected, there's this tremendous rage and jealousy that rises up. And God speaks to Cain and says, sin crouches at your door. And the image is sin is like this beast. It's a beast inside you, if not in the world. And you can master it or it can master you. And that's the great question. And what happens is he gives in to the rage and he destroys his brother. Of the first two born brothers in the world, one destroys the other. This is the Bible's reflection on human nature, as it were, the nature of the human being. You have the power to control this, or it can control you. And if you don't choose to control it, it will destroy you. It will destroy everything that's yours. So 1/4 of humanity is wiped out in one afternoon because of this. And this is the beginning of the narrative. And each successive generation, you get the same thing. You get Abraham and Lot, Gesundheit. You get Isaac and Ishmael, the brother who is cast out and rejected, and the brother who's embraced. Jacob and Esau plays it out in a very explicit way. And then Joseph and the brothers is the most explicit of all of them. They keep getting more and more. There's sort of an escalation. They keep getting longer. They keep getting more detailed. And they escalate. And the difference is that Gesundheit is that where Jacob has a mother who's protecting him, Joseph has no mother to protect him. Got no one to protect him. So he goes into the world. And what's remarkable, as we'll see today, is that Joseph, who can read dreams, can't read history. But dreams and history in some ways are a lot alike. I mean, how do you gather up all of these disparate phenomena and draw a line among them and see the picture and see the image that emerges? And while he can read dreams, he can't quite see his own character until today. Today, he can see it. And what happens when he finally sees it? When the image emerges off the page and he can see where he is in history, where he is in the family, where he is in the story, what does he do with that knowledge? That's what today's story is going to be about. And in order to help us, I didn't bring Dr. Freud. I brought his Talmid Muvhak. I brought his student, Eric Erickson, right? And we'll take a look at him in a minute. We'll take a look at him in a moment. Michael, yeah. Hang on, wait. Doug, I'm sorry, we want to make you famous to the people at home. Thousands of people are sitting up today in their pajamas.
I can't wait.
We have to do it one morning for them. We have to all show up in our pajamas. I think it would be like appropriate. The bathrobes, slippers, hair up, it would be kind of fun. Yeah, go ahead.
I think one of the other elements that is the overarching, one of the overarching elements of all these sibling stories,
right,
is that the writers are also trying to talk about primogeniture and how that doesn't always work. As a matter of fact, if you look at most folk tales always, who is the hero of most folk tales? The younger brother, the younger sibling, always is the one who gets the princess or the treasure.
Or is the princess. Cinderella gets to be the princess.
Or turns out to be the princess or the prince.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is one of the overarching
Right.
elements of here is that primogeniture does not work, and that when you use primogeniture as an element of family relationships, that can lead to a lot of trouble.
Yeah, so Michael raises a very, very important issue. So who told these stories and why? This is a great question. Who told these stories and why? And what I suggest you do is you have here a story which is heavily overdetermined. There's many different motivations behind this story. So one of the motivations behind the story is what Michael suggests, which is an attack on the whole law of primogeniture. Primogeniture is that law that says the oldest inherits. The oldest inherits. The firstborn is the favored one in the family. The others don't get nearly as much. Either don't get the double portion or don't get anything at all. And what the Bible does is overturn primogeniture again and again and again, because none of these brothers is the firstborn. The firstborn, for example, in this family, in Reuben, is the firstborn, and he's pictured as ineffectual. He can't fulfill his promises. He can't make up his mind. He can't do anything in the world. He's ineffectual. He's ineffectual. The other brothers are, Esau is the older brother, and he's uncontrolled. And each of the older brothers, now you could say this is an attack on primogeniture because it's trying to say that's a bad idea in a family. It could also be something else. There's a religious message here, which is primogeniture or any rule is a rule unless you have a God who's in the world. And when you imagine a world with a God who is active in human experience, then the rules don't always apply because sometimes God decides differently. Right? Israel is not the biggest, most powerful people in the world. We're a tiny, rather peripheral, rather politically marginal people, and yet we are the chosen ones of God. With a God in the world, the rules don't apply. Might makes right, except if there's a God in the world. If there's a God in the world, then might not make right. Right might have a chance, which is one of the motivations of this story. A second motivation of the story is something I suggested a couple of weeks ago, which jumps out at me in the Esau story, which is there's a flaw in monotheism. The flaw in monotheism is the idea if there's one God, there's one blessing, and only one brother gets chosen. Instead of, there's one God, there's a blessing for everybody, and everybody gets chosen. Whether you read monotheism as big and inclusive, or whether you read monotheism as small and exclusive. And the Bible's trying to say the small reading of monotheism. One brother, one blessing, the other one gets excluded. That small monotheism destroys the world. It destroys everything because it sets brothers against brothers. And you never have any peace. You'll never have peace in the world. The other reading of monotheism is one God for all, which is the opening chapters of Genesis. But that's a very sophisticated way to look at the world. Because binary thinking is so much more fun, right? Us, them. Our team, those guys. The children of light, the children of darkness, the enlightened and the cursed. I mean, that's so natural to us. When we were kids, it was cops and robbers, cowboys and Indians, right? White hats and black hats. I just saw the Star Wars movie. No doubt about who the good guys and the bad guys are. Right? They dress that way, right? She's in white. I give it away, sorry. She's always in white and he's always in black. I mean, they make this out. I mean, they tell you right away. Because there's something so satisfying about knowing who the good guys and bad guys are. Oh, don't give it away. Don't give it away. I am your father. You know? Anyway, they all show up, by the way. I will give you this much. If you go see the new Star Wars movie, they all show up. It's like they bring them all back from the grave. Well, there's no grave because it's Jedi immortality. They all come back. And they all have a place in the movie. So you get to see them. Oh, yeah, remember him? You know. So it's actually kind of fun. But that's the second way. The second way to understand it is it's a monotheism. The third way is a political story. Remember, when these stories were first put together, these stories were probably told orally for many generations, probably written down around the time of King David, but edited together into a national epic under the experience of exile. So here we are by the waters of Babylon, and there we sat, and there we wept, and we try to figure out our own history. We are in many ways like Joseph in the pit, trying to figure out how the hell did we get here? What's going on? Joseph, who is a dream reader, who can read these symbols of dreams and come up with the narrative about what happened and what's going to happen. That's us trying to read our own history. How did we get here and where are we going? What's about to happen? And the story tells you, right? What does the story tell you about what's about to happen? It tells you that you can never look at where you are historically. It's all a question of where you're going. Joseph in the pit tomorrow becomes the head of all of Egypt. Those who are Pharaoh, who is the great powerful leader of the world, is going to be taken down. It's all a question of where you're going. And and part of the story is if we don't get together and make some kind of common cause as a community, we will not survive this diaspora. So I think there's many different motivations behind this story because there's such good stories always have many good motivations. Someone had a hand up. Yes, please, come on. Hang on, wait, you got to do it in the microphone so the whole world can hear you.
My name is...
Just speak right into it and you're famous.
My name is Seth. And I just have a question.
Yeah, please go.
Why is the first mention of God a plural word and not a singular word?
Great. Why do you think? We give no answers in this class. We just ask great questions.
I'll try to. I have a tendency to ramble, but I'll try to.
All right, I'll give you the answer then. You want the answer? If you're going to ramble, I'm going to give you the answer.
Essentially, what I believe now is that, I was born Jewish, but to me, it is plural because it was not specifically mentioning God. There was the concept of God at the time, thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
But it was actually information from source, but through other vessels who, I basically believe that this planet was seeded.
All right, hang on. So I'll give you the answer, okay?
But that's just.
I got it. So here's
I allow everyone to believe whatever they
Good.
like.
We do too.
And my family, is 100% Jewish.
I'm delighted.
But it's just.
You filled with guilt? If you're filled with guilt, you're 100%.
I don't feel guilt. It's just interesting, like why is.
Okay,
it
so here's
not
the answer.
one word?
You have two principal names for God in the Bible. No. You have two principal names for God in the Bible. Okay, there are two principal names for God in the Bible. One of them is a word that we can't pronounce. It's written in Hebrew letters, Yud He Vav He, but we have lost the tradition of what the vowels were, so we don't know exactly now how that was pronounced. Okay, it seems to be a conflation of the words was, is, and will be. Okay, that it plays the role in the Bible of God's personal name. Okay, you're Seth. He's Yud He Vav He, okay? When we see that word, we say the word Adonai, which means my master. But the word is Yud He Vav He. It was taken out of circulation at a certain point in Jewish history. The other name in the Bible is Elohim, which is what you're referring to. The word El means a divinity. Eloha is a divinity. Elohim means the divinities, okay? Sometimes the two are conflated. It's Adonai Elohim. Sometimes they appear separately, Elohim. Sometimes you have Adonai separately. You have all of these different permutations, okay? All right, hang on. Because I tell you why. So there's two principal reasons. Number one of the answers that's given is that what you have here are different documents with different understandings of God, with different names they used for God that were once edited together into the Torah. Right? You have a document that came from the north of Israel called E, where God is used Elohim. And a document from the south of Israel, which is J, where God is Adonai Elohim, and a document which is called P, and a document which is called D. And once upon a time, they were all smushed together. Okay, that's one answer. So what you have is 4 different books put together, and they use different names for God in different places. That's one answer. Okay? A second way to understand it is that they refer to different aspects of divinity. Okay? There is Seth the son, and Seth the friend, and Seth the work partner, and Seth the ball player, and all the different roles you play in the world. And we have different experiences of divinity in the same way, and so the names of God reflect those different experiences of divinity. Okay? Third way to understand it is that Elohim, that name, that particular name, was meant to be a generic, right? So if I say Bob the plumber, Bob is his personal name, and plumber is his role in the world, and tells me a certain amount of what I can expect of him, right? I wouldn't ask him to fix a light socket. He's a plumber, okay? Elohim means all the powers of all the gods concentrated into one place. All the divinity. In other words, sometimes Hebrew uses plural nouns to mean a collection of things. We don't, when you want to say the word for water, it's mayim, which means waters. Blood is damim, which means bloods. Elohim is all the divinities gathered into one. So Adonai Elohim means Adonai, who is the experience we have of this God, carries all of the powers of all the gods that have ever been conceived in the world. And that's how it appears in the Bible. How's that? Okay? Yeah, please, Greg. Wait, you got to... No, it's not that. We're online and the whole world's watching you.
Could it also be the...
Thousands of people across the globe. No, go ahead.
Could it also be the 72 names or aspects of God?
Well, that's the Kabbalists The Kabbalists, the later mystics, who I know you've studied, the Kabbalists and later mystics went beyond this. They had an idea that God has separate personalities. So within God, there is a complexity, and they used other words to describe that complexity within God, within the Godhead, they called it. And they had numerous different names for God, including one very famous 72-letter name. If I had 72 letters in my name, I don't know how I'd sign my checks. That's the problem. But God had, and that reflects different aspects of divinity within God, God's self. Okay? Let's go back to Vayigash. We're on page 274. So here's the story that we come to the denouement. We've had Cain and Abel. We've had the sons of Noah. We've had Abraham and Ishmael, Abraham and Lot, Isaac and Ishmael, Jacob and Esau, Joseph and his brothers. Joseph has no mother to protect him. He has one full brother, Benjamin, the mother died giving birth to Benjamin. He announces himself, again, pardon the psychological Freudian word, as a paragon of infantile egotism. You know, the dreams where the whole world bows down to me. Freud called it king baby. He is every bratty brother. He is the archetype for bratty brothers. And every one of us who's an older brother had a moment when we tried to sell our younger brothers to Egyptian slavery. I did it, Billy did it, every one of us did it. It's a damn good thing no Midianite caravan came through Canoga Park, or my brother would be the prime minister of Egypt today, right? But, you know, you put a big sign in front of the house going, for sale, younger brother, good terms, you know, and you see what comes of your way. But his brothers, they throw him in the pit. And then comes along a Midianite caravan and pulls him out of the pit. And the brothers go back to the father and say, we don't know what happened to your son. And the father mourns for the kid for 21 years. Now we go to Egypt. And in Egypt, this remarkable up and down. He goes to the house of Potiphar, where he is tremendously successful. And then Mrs. Potiphar tries to seduce him, and he resists, and the master throws him in prison, and in prison he meets the cupbearer, and the baker and the cupbearer finally remembers him, and he interprets Pharaoh's dream, and he ends up as the most powerful man in the world who controls the world food supply. And then at the end of the story, his brothers show up. His brothers show up. And he has a choice at this moment, right? What could he do? He stands behind the mask of the prime minister of Egypt, literally a mask. He wears a mask. And his name is Tzafnach Paneach. He is the hidden one. All you see is the mask and the scepter. You don't see the man. Inside, he's Joseph, but nobody knows him by that name. It's been 21 years since anyone's called him by that name. Outside, he's the most powerful man. Inside, he's still wounded and broken from the experience of his home. And we know this because of the names of his kids. He names his kids Ephraim and Manasseh. Manasseh means, you'll excuse the expression, thank you, God, for helping me forget those bastards at home. That's really what it means. And Manasseh and Ephraim means I have prospered in the land of my adversity, of my pain. He carries the pain of his rejection in him. So on the outside, this man of enormous power. And on the inside, this kid of deep wounds. And that's the contrast. And the brothers show up in front of him. And the question is, how's he going to respond? And he has power over them. Just like in the dream, they have to bow in front of him. So he plays with them. He tortures them, basically. He takes one of them captive and says, don't come back until you bring me my younger brother. And they finally have to talk the father into bringing the younger brother. And the younger brother, Benjamin, comes down, and they stand in front of him again. And he accuses Benjamin of theft of his goblet. And he wants to see, what will they do? Will they abandon Benjamin the way they abandoned him? He puts them in exactly the same position they were in 21 years ago when he was a kid. You see, everybody see that? That's where we are in the story right now. He takes Benjamin and he says, he will be my slave, the rest of you can go home. And he wants to see, are they going to abandon Benjamin the same way they abandoned him? Now, before we start, let's just take a look at each character. Let's take a look at the story through each character. What do they know and what don't they know? What do the brothers think is going on? Who do the brothers think they're talking to? What do they know and what don't they know? So tell me, somebody speak for the brothers. For Judah, for example. What does he know and what doesn't he know? Okay? Come on. But hang on, give it to... Judah standing in front of this man with the mask.
He is Pharaoh's spokesperson.
All right, so hold on. So Judah thinks he's speaking to an Egyptian official, a very powerful Egyptian official, who gets to control whether or not they get food or not to survive the famine, right? And this Egyptian official keeps doing what? Keeps messing with, keeps asking him questions. Questions that don't seem to be relevant to, we've come to buy food. I mean, very few of us go to the supermarket and the checker wants to know, tell me about your parents. You have any brothers or sisters at home? Where do you keep the valuables in your house? What's your alarm code? Right. I mean, but this is, he keeps, you can have the microphone. He keeps interrogating them, right? So they're standing in front of this strange official. And by the way, what language are they speaking? Hebrew. Well, Joseph and Judah and the brothers are speaking to the Egyptian in Proto-Hebrew, Semitic, right? What language is Judah speaking to them? In Egyptian, in whatever the local Egyptian, with an interpreter between them, and they don't know that he understands everything they're saying, right? You get it? And they don't know that he, right? This is very strange Egyptian, and he keeps doing this. And now he's going to take the younger brother captive. For what? Strange. Do you see how strange this is to them? They just don't understand. And at one point they say to each other, that was in last week's Parsha, this is what happens. This is the punishment for what we did to Joseph. It's at the end of Miketz, if you want to go back. They say to each other, this is what happens to us, right? Right? And they anyway, they say this to each other and he understands it. He can hear them say that. So that's what they're looking at. What does Joseph know and what doesn't Joseph know? Who is he talking to? He's talking to his brothers, 21 years after the events. Have they changed? Have they not changed? He doesn't know, at first, he doesn't know if his father's still alive. They tell him his father's still alive. He doesn't know how the family experienced his disappearance. I mean, one of the curious things about this story is, why doesn't Joseph ever call home? I mean, he's got a cell phone, call home. He's in Potiphar's house. Tell Potiphar, my dad is the richest guy in Canaan. If you'll contact him, he will pay you 10 times what you paid for me. Why doesn't he call home? When he becomes the prime minister of Egypt, he doesn't call home. Why doesn't he call home? Why doesn't he call home? And for that reason, why doesn't he call home? Because the last time he talked to his father, what did his father tell him? He told his father about the dream with the sun and the stars and the moon bowing down to him, and his father yelled at him. And it was right after that the father sent him to the brothers. So he always assumed the father was in on it. And besides, not only does he not call home, why doesn't his father come looking for him? I mean, your father's the most powerful guy in the world. Send someone to look for you. We know that the father thinks he's dead. He doesn't know that his father thinks he's dead. He thinks his father's rejected him. He thinks his father sent him there to die. He is angry at the father as much as he's angry at the brothers. He doesn't know how this was experienced. I'll be all right with you, Mike. He doesn't know how this was experienced by the family. He's still filled with the rage. Remember, Ephraim and Manasseh, the names of his kids. God has helped me forget those guys at home, the family I came from. That's the name of his first son. He's carrying this sense of, I was rejected, I was sent to die by some quirk of fate. I didn't die. I want to forget all about them. I want nothing to do with those people. And again, with apologies to Dr. Freud and Dr. Gelman, the more you try to forget something, the more you have to remember it. Every time he calls his son into dinner, it's, hey, Thank you, God, for helping me forget those guys at home. It's supper time, right? You understand what's going on. He carries these wounds. So the brothers don't understand why this Egyptian bureaucrat is doing this to them. Joseph doesn't understand. Joseph is still seeing this through the eyes of the rage of the boy who was rejected. Okay? We, as the reader, and by the way, where does Jacob think? What does Jacob think? Jacob is back in Canaan. What does he think? That the son is dead. Right? That the son is dead. And this one, Benjamin, is the last I have of his mom. The last I have of Rachel. Right? So we know all the different characters' perspectives, but each character doesn't know what the other characters know. We also know one more thing. We know that something happened to Judah in between. And what happened to Judah in between? He lost 2 sons, and he only has 1 left. So he is exactly in the same position as his father, right? The son that he loves, that he's holding on to. He's afraid to give in marriage to Tamar because he's afraid he's going to lose that one too. He also understands the pain of losing a kid. So they've all grown, but no one knows how anyone else has grown. And it all comes together at this moment. And knowing all the other Bible stories, the question is, which story is going to prevail? Are we going to get another Cain and Abel moment? Is Joseph going to unleash his rage against these guys? Or is something else about to happen? Michael.
Well, first of all, most great stories, whether it's in the Bible or otherwise, are usually based on secrets and lies.
Yeah.
In families especially.
Yeah.
In this story, the great lie is when Judah says, his full brother is dead. Now, he knows Joseph did not die.
No, he doesn't. I don't think so. I disagree.
They sold him into slavery.
Well, not necessarily. Well, first of all,
And Joseph knows it.
number one, selling a pretty young boy into slavery is death. It's at least worse than death. Number two, I don't think so, because here's the problem. They put him in a pit. It said, a Midianite caravan passed by. Then the next line says, they took him out of the pit.
Oh, so we don't know if it's the brothers or the Midianites.
Now suppose it could be the brothers and they knew they sold him to slavery. Suppose it's not. They're eating burritos, and the Midianites find a kid in a pit, and when the brothers go back to the pit's empty. They don't know where he is. All they got is the coat. They don't know where he is. They don't know anything about his whereabouts.
But Joseph knows.
Joseph,
And
but they knew they put him in a
crucial.
pit. Now the secret is, imagine that Shabbos table for 21 years. You got the old man sitting at the head of the table crying over the dead kid. The other brothers, who never loved him anyway, sitting there trying to keep their mouths shut. No one is going to say anything. Imagine, that's got to be one lovely Jewish family. You know, just lovely Jewish family.
But the awareness that Joseph has sitting up there on that dais,
Awareness of what?
of that he's alive.
Yeah.
And they think, even if they think he really is dead,
Yeah.
I mean, that disconnect is incredible.
Yes, that's the whole drama of the story. They think he's dead, right? They don't know, and the question is, are they going to do the same thing to Benjamin? Is that the kind of? And look again. Go to my different levels of the story. Is that who we are as a people? We cut each other off and sacrifice each other. You know, yeah, you don't belong. You're not part of the family. We'll sell you into slavery. We don't need you anyway. Sometimes we behave that way. I don't know how many Jews you know, but sometimes we behave that way. You know, you'd think there were 40 billion of us. The way that we treat each other is dispensable. You know what I mean? It's just strange people, you Jews. I just want you to know. Billy, do you have a comment you want to add something?
Well,
We're on
while the
274 in the Chumash. We'll get to it, I promise you.
the disconnect also is that he has avoided his family, but he still has an affinity to God. Every time he talks to Pharaoh or projects what he's about, it's all in terms of God.
Yeah, but you see, he never asked God the simple question like, how's my family? He never asked God, how's my father? He never asked God, like, why am I here? He can read dreams, but he can't read his own history. But until this moment. Ready? So here's the moment. We read this a couple weeks ago. We talked about Judah. So Benjamin is in custody, And the Egyptian says to them, go home, I'll keep this one. And Judah steps forward. Vayigash Yehuda. He steps up. Here's the denouement. Now, when you read this, this is fancy medieval language, okay? So when it says the word, my Lord, replace it with the word you. And when it says the word, your servant, replace it with the word me. Is that okay? You got that? So, Judah went up to him and said, please, my Lord, let your servant, let me appeal to you. And do not be impatient with me, who are the equal of Pharaoh. You asked us, have we a father, another brother? We told you we have an old father. There's a child of his old age. And there is a child at the youngest. His full brother is dead. Now he knows how he was perceived in the family. That's why the family never came to rescue him. So that he alone is left of his mother, and his father dotes on him. And you said, bring him down. I must set eyes on him. And we said, the boy cannot leave his father. If he were to leave him, his father would die. But you said to us, unless your youngest brother comes down, do not let me see your faces. When we came back to my father, we reported your words. Our father said, go back and get some more food. We answered, we can't go down unless our younger brother's with us. We can't go down, for if we show our faces to the man, unless we show our younger brothers with us. Your servant, my father, said to us, now listen, this is Judah quoting Jacob to Joseph. Everybody got that? My father said to us, as you know, my wife bore me 2 sons, but one is gone from me. And I said, alas, he was torn by a beast, and I haven't seen him since. That's the first time Joseph understands exactly how the family experienced his disappearance. Jacob didn't send him down there to die. Jacob thinks he's dead. Jacob sent him down there on an innocent mission to be with the brothers. And he was loved by the father. He was always loved by the father. That's what he didn't know, is how much he was loved by his father. If you take this one from me too, that's Benjamin, and he meets with disaster, you will send my white head down to Sheol in sorrow. You'll kill me. This will kill me. Now, Joseph is 21 years older. When you're 17 years old, you look at your father in a very interesting way. Right? You're still competing. I mean, in this, Freud was right. You're still competing with your father. You still want to overcome your father. By the time you're about 40, how do you look at the parent? What happens to you at 40 and when you look at your parent? You suddenly have a different appreciation, especially if you yourself are a parent. You look at your parents differently. What? Sorry? What? You look at your parents different. You can begin to see your parents as people with their own independent emotional life. They're not part of you in the same sense. They're now people with their own emotional, and you can appreciate their anguish. Now he can appreciate something about the anguish of his father. And Judah says, if I come to my father and the boy's not with us, and here's this beautiful phrase, nafsho kshura b'nafsho, a soul entwined with a soul. When he sees the boy's not with us, he will die. And we will send the white head of our father down in Sheol in grief. Now I have pledged myself for the boy, saying, if I don't bring him back, I stand guilty. Therefore, let me stay as your slave, and let the boy go back with his brothers. For how can I go back to my father unless the boy is with me? Let me not witness the woe that would overtake my father. And at that moment, what happens? That breaks the dam. That cracks the mask. That's what cracks the rage that he's held all these years, the pain that he's held all these years, the wound is now open. Joseph could no longer control himself before his attendants, and he cried out, have everyone withdraw from me. Why? Because when he takes off the mask, he can't be in the presence of the Egyptians. So there was no one around. And when Joseph made himself known to his brothers, his sobs were so loud the Egyptians could hear them, and the news reached Pharaoh's house. Joseph says to his brothers, now presumably in Hebrew, right? Ani Yosef achicha. Right? He says to his brothers, he says, V'yomer Yosef elechav, Ani Yosef ha'od avichai. Is father still alive? Is my father still alive? What was it in Judah's speech that cracked the mask? What was it? What did Judah say that finally broke Joseph's heart? What was it? What was it? Yeah, what was it? What was it? It could be take me instead. That's one possibility. And why would you say that?
Because that shows that he.
Yeah,
That shows that he has changed.
completely. Right. The cynical brother who sold him into slavery now is willing to give himself up. He's willing to sacrifice himself for his brothers. Right? Completely different character than we met before. Completely different character we met before. There's one other possibility. There's one other possibility. You want to add another possibility? Yes, please. Yeah. Take it. Take the thing. Yeah.
Nafsho kshura benafsh.
Nafsho kshura benafsho. What does that mean? Yeah. Why? Why that one? Soul entwined with the soul.
Right. It shows Joseph how much Jacob loved him.
Yeah.
Because he loved
So the second possibility is when Judah describes Jacob's love for Benjamin, he's also describing Jacob's love for Joseph. And the brothers appreciate that now. I mean, before the favoritism was a point of jealousy. And now it's, the poor old guy had a wife. He only had 2 kids from that wife. He loved that wife. He loved those kids. They understand the father's love. They're willing to forgive the father the favoritism because they understand the love. Let me propose one third idea. Yeah, go ahead. Brian, go ahead.
The wild beast.
Well, it could be the wild beast, which is he hears his own narrative. Somebody tells you your own story back to you, and now you see it in a completely different way. Now I know why they never came to rescue me. Now I know why they never tried to find me. Now I know that I wasn't sent there to die. That was an accident. I want to propose one more thing. Look at the last line of Judah's speech. See, I really agree with your idea that Judah, is incredible, but the speech doesn't end that way. Right? He says, if it had ended that way, then you would be right. Completely right. Here's a second possibility, though. He says, how can I go back to my father? Let me not witness the woe that would overtake my father. I mean, they did it to him once. And it's the father's pain. It's when Joseph perceives for a moment his father's pain. Something breaks. Men are like this, by the way. I mean, you want to see a guy cry, ask him about his dad. Guys cry at this. It's an amazing thing. We have very complicated relationships with our fathers, right? And Freud was right, because we're competing and we're loving at the same time. And when he says, I'd kill him, this would kill him. So these are all possibilities. And something cracks, and Joseph says, I'm your brother. I'm your brother. Somebody asked me last week, Joseph is called in the tradition, in the Midrashic tradition, Yosef HaTzadik, Joseph the righteous one. There's nothing righteous in his life. He's a brat as a kid. He is a snitch in the prison, right? He's a stooge in Potiphar's house. In a minute, he's going to become the slave master, the author of totalitarianism in Egypt. There's nothing righteous in this life except one thing. This moment, he's willing to forgive his brothers. And here's the theory. Joseph said to his brothers, but his brothers couldn't answer him because they're so dumbfounded. We're on 276, we're on 45:4. Chapter 45, verse 4. Joseph said to his brothers, come forward to me. Geshuna Elai, which is a great phrase, because the previous phrase was Vayigash Yehuda. Judah came forward. He means it's not just physical. I want to be close to you again. Come close to me, right? And when the brothers came forward, he said, Ani Yosef Achichem. I am Joseph, your brother. That's Achichem. I am Joseph, your brother. Right? We are connected. There's a very famous story that during Vatican II, the Pope was Pope John the 23rd, invited a large delegation of Jewish leaders to come see him, to talk about renegotiating the image of Jews in church liturgy. And when they came in, he was Giuseppe Roncalli, who was the Bishop of Venice. And he had done wonderful things during the war to protect Jews. And he had a sense of who these people were. And Giuseppe in Italian is Yosef. And he said to this delegation of Jews, Ani Yosef Achicha. And we, right? It's time to reconcile. It's time to make peace. So he says to them, I am Joseph, your brother. Now here's the history. Do not be distressed or reproach yourselves because you sold me here. It was to save life that God sent me ahead of you. It's been 2 years there's famine in the land. There's still 5 years to come in which there'll be no yield from the tilling. I see you. God has sent me ahead of you to ensure your survival on earth, to save your lives in an extraordinary deliverance. Look at the next verse. It was not you who sent me here, but God. Upstairs history, right? You thought you were trying to kill me. No, this was all God's plan. What just happened? He now reads his history completely different. He reads his story completely different. He sees that he's not just the rejected brother. This is part of a larger plan. You want to know how the Jewish people survived 1,800 years of bitter exile? That's this line. This is the line. How did we survive 1,800 years of torture, 1,800 years of oppression, 1,800 years of rejection, 1,800 years of diaspora? We always believed this is part of some larger plan that will yield redemption. This story is a redemptive story. It's a story of redemption, as you said. How did we do it? We believe that we are part of a larger history of redemption. What has he just done? He took his abilities as a dream interpreter and he applied it to his own experience. In a dream, you connect the dots and create a picture. 7 cows, 7 sheaves, birds, bread, cups, stars, moon, all the same. Here you get the same thing. He finally understands. Here's the picture. My history is a picture. It came to be for a reason. And therefore, I can let go of my rage. It wasn't you guys. And it turned out okay. It's not all's well that ends well. It's deeper than that. We are part of a bigger drama, and we might not be aware that we're part of a bigger drama. With apologies. In the same way that the unconscious guides us to do things that we're not always aware. Come on, I think it works. Douglas.
In a story
Yeah.
in which God is not mentioned,
Yeah.
we come to interpret that God is an influence on history.
Yes.
And now we live in a modern world
Yes.
where, if we're going to say that, you're going to make us nauseous.
Right.
And you're going to...
That's right. That's we have to come back next week and figure this out. You're right. So the problem is, if this is the way Jews have read history for the last 2,800 years, how do we read our history now? Number one, as moderns, we read history as a solely secular process. History is a set of events governed by economics, social trends, political decisions, technologies. We don't read a God of history. Number two, if we did read a God of history, that presents you with an intractable set of painful questions. So it's impossible to answer those questions. That's why the first line, Mordechai Kaplan was Rabbi Schulweiss's great teacher. And Mordechai Kaplan wrote 25 books, which all say the same thing. And they're dull. All of them. Heschel writes poetically. Kaplan, not so much. The first line of Kaplan's the best book that Kaplan wrote is called The Meaning of God in Modern Jewish Religion. And the first line of that book says, we live in a different universe than our ancestors did. We do. We live in a different universe. We don't see the universe. And therefore, if you're going to try to teach traditional Jewish religion the way that your ancestors did, it's going to be very difficult to penetrate modernity because we live in a different universe.
Did he write that before?
And he wrote that before the Shoah. He wrote that just under the influence of science. And Schulweiss, who is his student, writes a book called Evil and the Morality of God, which is virtually unreadable, but I read it, right? And what he says there is, it's not Darwin and it's not Einstein that changed our world. It's Auschwitz and Hiroshima. And he's right. And so you have to read it differently. You have to read it differently. Okay? Yeah, go, Jeremy.
Oh.
Hey. Thanks, Jeremy.
Joseph's been able to recognize Hashem's influence in terms of interpreting dreams. I don't do it, Hashem did it.
Yeah, right.
This moment, though, and that's what the question is this moment a revelation for
Yes.
Joseph? I'm suddenly getting what I didn't get.
I think so. I think this is I think you have it exactly in the same way that you interpret a dream. It comes to you. I mean, when he says, God gives me this ability, I get it. I see what it's trying to say. I think he looks at his own history and he says, I get it. I see what it's trying to say. Now, at this moment. No, as he's sitting there in front of the brothers with the mask on, determining whether he should kill them all, keep Benjamin as a slave, or send them away and not have anything to do with them. Those are his choices. Something inside of him changes. Part of it is Judah's self-sacrifice. Part of it is suddenly he understands the pain of his father, right? And what keeping Benjamin would do if he gave, the father has a role there to play. And part of it, he suddenly sees himself in a whole different way. I mean, he sees his narrative is now changed. And in that narrative, he can let go of the rage he has at these brothers. He can let go of the rage he has at the world. He's not Menashe and Ephraim anymore. Menashe and Ephraim, think about those names. God has helped me forget my pain. That's the name of his kid. That's the name that's what he's invested in. There's a huge part of him which is filled with this pain, and suddenly he sees his history, and he doesn't have to feel that way anymore. You're a Jew in diaspora. Do you hate the Goyim? Yeah, you probably do, because they make life hell for you. But on the other hand, you see your life, you go to Shul Shabbos, and the rabbi reminds you that you're part of a great messianic drama. You just haven't seen the last act yet. You're still Joseph in the pit. Wait, it's coming. Bimhera, bi'amenu, ya'avo eleinu, imashiach ben David. You'll all sing that tonight at Havdalah, right? Right? Which means I'm waiting for the last act of the drama, God, but I see where I am in the drama. Okay? You see, you get it? Yeah, please. Yeah. What do you think?
You don't think he longed for his people all those years?
That's a great question. So that's why I brought you this. Thank you for that wonderful transition. Why? I want to know the following. Why doesn't he just close his eyes and ignore his brothers altogether? Look, he could have killed them all because he had the power to do that. He could have taken Benjamin's slave as he said he was going to do. He had the power to do that. But more likely, just say, you all know people, I want nothing to do with those people. I want nothing to do with those people. Just that's more likely. That's more human. I want nothing to do with those people. And yet, hang on a second, there's some reason why he wants to engage with them. Why does he want to engage with them? Why does he want to engage with them? Why does he name his kid? He doesn't name his kid Bob, right? Joseph had two kids, Bob and Dick, and he named them that because they're his two very ball players. He named it Lou Gehrig and Babe Ruth, Safnach Paneach, right? No, he names his kids, I'm remembering my family, because there's something missing in him. And that's what the Torah also is trying to say, right? What's missing in him? You can be the prime minister of Egypt. You can have all the power in the world. You can marry the girl of your dreams. You can have the life everyone envies, but nobody knows his name. Nobody knows his name, his eternal name. Nobody knows his story. Nobody knows him. They only know the mask. And he wants somebody to know him. He wants somebody to know who he is behind Ani Yosef. There's a couple of interesting sources. There's a really interesting source in Pirkei Avot. It's in the 5th chapter of Pirkei Avot. And it's the ages of man, basically, right? So take a look at this with me, because this is just a lovely source. And it just gives you a list of the life cycle, right? At 5, one studies Bible. At 10, one studies Mishnah. At 13, you have a bar mitzvah. At 18, he is ready for marriage. At 20, he begins a career. At 30, he's at the height of his powers. At 40, he achieves binah, understanding. At 50, he's prepared to give eitzah, wise counsel. At 60, he's given the respect of seniority, zikna. At 70, he's considered a sage, seva. 80 is the age of gevurah, of heroic strength. 90, one is bent over. And 100, it's as if he's checked out. Right? I didn't want to insult Mort, so... So now look at this a moment. This is such an interesting source. Look at the way it lays out. First of all, you notice that what the tradition does is says every age has its own moment. That's a very different system than in America. I don't know how many of you got this letter on my like a week before my 50th birthday. Dear Edward M. Feinstein, welcome to the wonderful world of AARP. And I said, AARP? American Association of Retired Persons? I'm a kid. Like, AARP? What? I'm not going to start eating discounted meals at Denny's. I mean, come on. I'm not going to start playing. I'm not going to wear polyester and white pants. I'm not going to. And retired. Such a great word, retired. I'm tired.
It ain't such a great word.
Retread. I know it's not. Because in America, we have a Greek idea that you are your body. And the beauty of the soul is the beauty of the body. Right? So you're at your peak when you're 22, 23, 30, 35, right? But as you get older and the body begins to deteriorate, you become old-fashioned. Have you ever seen a product advertised on television that was guaranteed to make you look older in only minutes a day? No, seriously. How much stuff is sold to you that makes you look and feel years younger? Right? Because younger is better, newer, fresher, improved, right? Old, worn out. Except times I use the word classic. I'm becoming a classic like you, like we're becoming classics, What?
The word is dinosaur.
Say? The other one is legend. Legend. Oh, that's a good one. Right. Here, what the Talmud does is something very different. If you interpret the human being not as body but as soul gets better with age. So look how this works. At 5, one studies Bible. At 10, Mishnah. So the first task of life is literacy. And life is measured by how much literacy you've gained. At 13, you become responsible, right? Now the next section of life has to do with family and career, with sort of settling in as an adult, responsibility. At 18, you're ready for marriage. At 20, you begin a career. At 30, you're at the height of your powers. What the Talmud means by that is you can support yourself. By 30, you're presumably out in the world supporting yourself. Hear that, kids? Okay? But now look what happens at 40. This is where it gets really interesting. The whole Mishnah changes in the next section, because it's no longer about gaining literacy or adopting responsibility. It's about gaining qualities of soul. And what's amazing is that the qualities of soul that are described, Gesundheit, for the next ages are all divine qualities. They're things we associate with God. Bina, Eitzah, Zikna, Seva, Gvura are all things we associate with God. So at 40, you gain Bina. What do you know at 40 that you didn't know at 20? What do you know at 40 that you didn't know at 20? Go ahead, tell me.
By 40, you've made a lot of life mistakes that you can learn from.
Yeah.
You've learned from your experience.
And you've learned that you can survive those mistakes, right?
But at 20, you still think you're invulnerable.
What do you know at 40 that you... Sorry, what? Yeah, at 20 you're invincible, right. And you're all-knowing, right? Yeah, what do you know at 40 that you don't know at 20? Go ahead, please. Yeah. Yeah.
You see the whole picture, not just the event.
You can see the whole picture. Good. At 50, you can tell people what to do. No, seriously. So from 40 to 50, you not only gain the capacity to understand, you gain the capacity to guide people. At 60, you become a leader in the community. Zikna means a leader. There's a leadership quality at 60. At 70, you can teach. At 80, you have gevura. You have the full flowering of human capacity at 80.
From 50 on, that's all giving back.
It's all giving back, right. Now, where does this come from? The Talmud comments on this and says that, because I looked up, I wanted to know where you get this idea that at 40 you get binah. And the answer is Joseph. They talk about maybe it's the 40 years in the desert. Maybe it's the 40 days Moses was on the mountain. And the Talmud's answer finally is Joseph. How old is Joseph when he gets to Egypt? He's 17 years old when he's sold to Egypt. He spends 21 years in Egypt before the brothers show up. The brothers show up, he's 37. When the brothers, the whole denouement of the story is in that year. So he's 37, he's 40. He's around 40. What does Joseph learn at 40 that he didn't know when he was 20? That he needs these guys. That he needs these people. That he needs anybody. That he needs people around him. At 20, he thought that what he wanted most of all was people to worship him. The 20-year-old wants people to bow down to him. He is the sun and the stars and the moon. Everyone bows down to him. The sheaves of the field bow down to him. At 20, you want to be adulated. At 40, what do you discover? I need people. And the idea that he needs his brothers, that he needs their connection with them. Ani Yosef achichem. I am Joseph, your brother. I want to be your brother. I want to be one of the brothers. I want to be in the family. I want someone to know me behind the mask. At 20, you're working really hard on that mask. By 40, I want to know something. I want people to know me. I want to be known and not just have power, but I actually want to be known. That's why he's Joseph. That's why he's Joseph, the tzaddik. That's what makes him the tzaddik. Someone else had a yes, sir. Please.
He showed his faithfulness to his roots,
Yeah.
including God.
Yeah.
That was the reason that he changed.
Well, it's his faithfulness to God. It's his faithfulness to his roots. Yeah, but he had every right to hate them. That's the point. The experiences he went through could have left him with tremendous rage his whole life. At what point do you let go of that? And how do you let go of it? How do you let go of that rage? How do you let go of that hate? How do you stop blaming? Now, the story has a nice ending. If he'd still been in the prison, he probably would have thought differently. But at a certain point, do you let go of the rage? Do you let go of the hate? Do you let go of the blame? Do you let go of and do you say, I want something else out of my life? That's not because anger is a great motivator. Anger is a drug. I mean, but it leaves you exhausted and depleted at the end. He's looking for something besides anger as his motivation. He's looking to love. Now again, go back to our original story. The whole story of the book of Genesis is trying to teach one big idea. Hine matovu manayim shevet achim gam yachad. How on earth do you get brothers to live together and not kill each other? How do you do that? Well, what do you learn from Joseph? What do you learn from Esau? What do you learn from Ishmael? What do you learn from the brothers who were dealt badly by the family? They each found a way to let go of the rage and to say, Dayenu, I have enough blessing in my life. I want to be connected again. And the Bible is pleading with us to recognize that's where we are. That's where we are. And that's, if you read, there's a beautiful Heschel section at the bottom. This is an unpublished essay by Heschel that his daughter found among his files and published in his book, Moral Grandeur and Spiritual Audacity, about facing the chaos and taking on a role in that, which I think it's a very, very nice, it's a very, very beautiful essay. So here's at the end of the story, you end up with, you end the book of Genesis with this wonderful sort of breath of redemption. You end the book of Genesis with a breath of redemption. And what will happen is next week there's going to be an epilogue. But before we get to next week's epilogue, there's one sort of, you know how movies that come in series or television programs that sort of they give you a foreshadowing of what's to come? All right, turn to chapter 47. This is the what's to come. And we're not going to get through this. We're just going to take a quick peek at it because this is what's coming and you got to hear it. Turn to page 286, chapter 47, verse 13. So the previous thing is Joseph brings his father down to Egypt and settles all the Israelites, all of Jacob's family in the land of Goshen, which is a faraway suburb. And now you get the following little scenario. There was no bread in the world, for the famine was severe. Both in Egypt and the land of Canaan languished because of the famine. Joseph gathered in all the money that was to be found in the land of Egypt as payment for the rations that were being procured. And Joseph brought the money to Pharaoh's palace. So there's no food. Who controls all the food in the world? Joseph. So what does he do? He sells the food to the people of the world. At least the people of Egypt, right? And when he sells it, it's a long famine. When they run out of money, Joseph now owns all the money. Right? All the money. All of it. And when the money gave out in the land of Egypt, the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came to Joseph and said, "Give us bread, lest we die before your very eyes, for the money is gone." So Joseph said, "Okay, bring me your livestock, and I will sell it to you against the livestock if the money's gone." So they brought the livestock to Joseph. And Joseph gave them bread in exchange for the horses and the stocks of sheep and cattle and the asses. He provided them with bread that year in exchange for their livestock. And when that year was ended, they came to him the next year and said, "We can't hide from my lord. With all the money and the animal stocks consigned to my lord, nothing is left at my lord's disposal, save our persons and our farmland. Let us not perish before your eyes, both we and our land. Take us and our land in exchange for bread. Provide the seed that we may live and not die, that the land may not become waste." So Joseph gained possession of all the farmland of Egypt for Pharaoh, every Egyptian having sold his field because the famine was too much for them. Thus the land passed over to Pharaoh, and he removed the population town by town. Sounds like Mao Zedong, right? From one end of Egypt's border to the other. Only the land of the priests he didn't take, and the priests had allotment from Pharaoh. They lived off the allotment. And when Joseph said to the people, "I've taken this day acquired you and your land for Pharaoh. Here is the seed to sow the land. When the harvest come, you'll give 1/5 to Pharaoh, 4/5 shall be yours as seed for the fields, and food for you, and nourishment for your children." And they said to him, what?
Thank you.
Yes, they said, "You've saved our lives. We are grateful to you. We shall be serfs to Pharaoh." And Joseph made it a law in Egypt, which is still valid. The Torah says it's still enforced. It breaks the fourth wall and tells you that, right? That 1/5 should be given to Pharaoh, only the land of the priests were not. But the Israelites were settled in Goshen. What did Joseph do? What did he do? He took possession of all the money, all the cattle, all the people, and all the land. And then he moved them off of the land into cities and then sent them back out to the land as serfs to Pharaoh. What did he do? He created the first totalitarian state. This is a totalitarian state. He owns everybody and everything. Who did that?
Joseph.
Will that have consequences? We'll find out next week. Have a good Shabbos. Dr. Bob.
Does 40 contribute to the midlife crisis?
Tell me how.
Well, in terms of what goes on in our heads, what goes on